My driving instructor told me to never turn unless he said so I drove him straight into another state while he slept. Mr. Myatt was the kind of teacher who got off on making students miserable. In AP history, he'd lean over your desk during tests, breathing coffee breath down your neck while tapping his pen on your paper just to throw you off. And when he handed back essays drowned in red ink, he'd always add his favorite line. In the real world, this wouldn't fly. I spent all junior year counting down to summer, marking days off my calendar like a prisoner, thinking I'd finally be free of his polyester blazers and power trips. So when I walked into driver's ed 2 weeks later and saw him sitting behind the instructor's desk, my stomach dropped like a stone. Where do I turn? I asked during our first lesson, gripping the wheel nervously. You don't turn unless I say to, he barked, making me swerve slightly. Just assume you're going straight until I say otherwise. Though with your steering, straight is a pretty loose term. The two other girls in the backseat exchanged looks through the rearview mirror. When Sophia gripped the wheel too tight, he chuckled. Death grip won't help you drive better, sweetheart. This isn't a strength test. Emily stalled at a stop sign and he slapped his knee laughing. And this is why I keep my seatbelt extra tight with you girls. Never know when we're gonna stop or if we're gonna stop. By the third lesson, we discovered his pattern. He'd make his nasty jokes for 20 minutes, then use the afternoon drives as nap time while we practiced highway driving. Don't worry about that curb you just kissed, he said when I veered slightly. I'm sure it'll recover from the trauma, unlike my neck. When Sophia asked about parallel parking, he laughed. You can barely handle forward parking and you want to try parallel? That's adorable. He spent the entire next lesson bragging about his important dinner plans with his wife. If we survive today's lesson, that is. 3 teenage girls driving, I should update my will. One afternoon, Sophia slightly veered and he exploded. Jesus, are you trying to collect mailboxes? Cause you're doing great. He wiped tears from laughing so hard. You know, girls like you three are why insurance rates are so high and why driving instructors need hazard pay. It's funny because it's true. Then he made his final comparison. My 5-year-old nephew has better control of his big wheel than you girls have of this car. He was still chuckling when he added, just try not to kill us while I... And then he was snoring, head tilted back against the headrest. I looked at Emily and Sophia in the rearview mirror and something passed between us. That's when I realized he told me to never turn unless he said so. The interstate entrance was coming up on the right and I could see the big green sign marking I-95 North hanging over the highway like a dare. I tilted my head slightly toward it and Emily caught my glance, following my eyes to the sign before whispering, I didn't hear him say turn, while Sophia nodded slowly and added, me neither. I glanced down at the fuel gauge showing a full tank, then back at the sleeping Mr. Myatt, and as we approached the on-ramp and I felt the car naturally wanting to continue straight onto the interstate, I took a deep breath and tightened my grip on the wheel. Well, he did say to follow his instructions exactly. The merge onto the interstate was smooth, and Mr. Myatt kept snoring while the highway stretched endlessly ahead. 30 minutes passed, then an hour, and his phone started buzzing in the cup holder with increasing frequency. We passed the Welcome to New Jersey sign after 2 hours, making Emily stifle a nervous giggle as his phone lit up constantly with wifey flashing on the screen. By the time we approached Newark after 2.5 hours, I finally pulled into a rest stop and we all prepared to act confused. Mr. Myatt, where are we? Sophia asked in her most innocent voice after gently shaking him awake. He jolted up, blinking rapidly as his brain processed the New Jersey Turnpike signs surrounding us, and his face morphed from confusion to pure horror when he grabbed his phone and saw 47 missed calls. He just stared at us, then the signs, then his phone again while his face cycled through every possible shade of panic. The 3-hour drive back was silent except for his phone ringing constantly. He dropped us all back at the school parking lot, mumbling only, see you Thursday, before driving off without another word. Next Thursday, we all braced for his explosion, but he walked in grinning instead. So apparently my wife called every hospital between here and Jersey thinking I'd been kidnapped, which honestly would have been less embarrassing than the truth. We couldn't help but laugh as he actually looked us in the eye for the first time ever. And from then on, every lesson started with, we're staying in the state today, right? He actually taught us properly instead of just mocking our mistakes. And during our last lesson, he shook his head and smiled. Next week, you three officially become dangers to society with licenses. But between you and me, I think the real danger's been sitting in the instructor seat this whole time. Years later, my sister came home from driver's ed raving about how cool Mr. Myatt was, telling me he shares this hilarious story about 3 girls who drove him to New Jersey and calls it the best lesson he ever learned.